Hi everyone, it's Harry the Soul Coach, and today I'm going to share with you my three top favorite books. So these books are my personal favorites, and these are books that I recommend to everyone. I'm going to share a snippet from each book and just explain the reasons why I love them so much, and also explain how they've really helped me understand. They've really helped me on this spiritual journey, and I really encourage people to get these books. And I also encourage the Audible versions because of the way it is delivered and the way that you receive the information. You hear it from the authors, and there's something magical about that. It's like you're having a conversation with them. And all of these books are spiritual books. However, it's spirituality when we're looking at truth, when we're looking at the awakening. And the first two books that I will mention is for everyone that's on the spiritual journey. And just when you're looking for truth, things that are so simple that make complete sense. And once you go through these ones, everything on your life starts to change. The awareness that comes into your life, because all the stories that are shared on these books, you'll be able to reference back to yourself and to your loved ones. And I continue to share these all the time. The third book is definitely one for people that are a bit more further into their spiritual journey, because it is a brain explode, and it really challenges everything that we have been taught and everything that we've been led to believe in this life, and it kind of shatters all of it. And I love learning now, especially when it comes to spirituality and everything that I can relate back to my life. If you've been following my channel, you can see there's quite a contrast in the material that I put out there. I have my meditations, which I say is my gift, and that's my creation. The soul coaching, which is all of this stuff. And then you've also got the truth elements, which touch on politics and certain names like Donald Trump, which challenge a lot of people. However, I always say, pay attention to the messenger. See what I'm about, first of all, and the reason why I'm doing all of this, and everything ties in together. The more you focus on this stuff, which allows you to go within and really trust in your intuition, your gut feeling, and that's your soul. And when you trust in your feelings, which is your truth, then all of a sudden the external world, the world that we step into every day, is a lot easier for us to navigate. It's a lot easier to say no to certain things that come our way. It's a lot easier for us to stand our ground and stand on our truth, because when it feels right, it is a truth. It's that simple. It's that easy to make a decision. It's that clear. And it's so empowering as you go on a journey. Why else I love learning, and especially the books that I'm going to share with you today, is every time I go back to revisit them, which is regularly every day, I always pick up something else. So the idea was to share my favorite books, my personal ones today. And then I've got a top five that I'm going to share as my recommendations for people on a spiritual journey. And then I've got loads of other books more advanced into the spiritual journey, and then certain books of reasons why we should be doing it and how that would benefit in certain aspects of our life. So the learning journey I'm on, every day, at least 45 minutes, I'm listening to one of these books. I've been using Audible now for about 5 years, and I'm just going to quickly share my listening time in that space. It's over 2 full months of listening. So imagine taking 2 months of a year just learning. That's now over the 5 year period. And every single month, I average around 40 hours on the listening time. And I pick and choose times of the day that I do listen to my books, because there'll be moments, and it's for the same as people when you're reading. There's certain times when you start a book or you get into a book, and a few pages in or a few chapters in, you realize it's not sinking. Your mind's drifting elsewhere. So I really pay attention to that now. If I'm not focused, I'll stop. And an example today, I was listening to a book, Walking, and I wasn't engaged with it. So I just stopped, and I don't beat myself up. I don't get frustrated with it. I meditate to all my books, and there's something about meditating or just closing your eyes and being still. It really hits home. And these books I've gone through so many times. I reckon each one at least 3 times. Awareness, which is the first one I'm going to share you, every day. It's like my Bible. And the narrator and the author is called Anthony DeMello. There's something magical about him. I've done a few talks before where I've shared some of his clips. He passed away in the 90s. His teachings and the way that he delivers and his humor is how I would love to be able to be on stage and put my message out there. So he's someone that I would say is one of my best teachers and someone that I look forward to every time to watch his work and take in his wisdom. And as I keep saying, truth is timeless. So the first book is called Awareness, Anthony DeMello, and it's a must. It is a must. It's so simple the way he delivers it. And I say that he gives you soul slaps. You just get hit all the time with truth. And there's so many aspects of your life where you realize that's me. And he'll say certain things where you're like, that's my mum. And it's so simple. And the way that he explains things and it really helps people to awaken. When we go through this awakening journey, and especially when you step into truth, that question, are you awake? I'm awake. I've been awake for a long time. And then you listen to this and you realize I'm so far away from being awake. Just to call myself awake just shows I'm asleep. And it's just simple stuff. And a lot of the teachings that I share have definitely been influenced for the way that he delivers his message. And it also then ties in with all the other stuff that I'm listening to now as well. My connection with God over the last few years has really strengthened, especially over the last 6 months. And it's amazing how different I take things in from a stronger connection that only keeps growing. So the more awareness you keep coming back to certain teachings and something else resonates with you. I also get to a stage where it's like a Russian roulette where I can just flick on any book at any chapter at any time, or like pulling out a tarot card, and I take the teaching at that moment. And sometimes it has so much relevance to what's taken place in my day, or something I was discussing with a family member or a friend, or something that's come up in the news, and like, that's perfect for it. So the first one is I'm going to share about 8-minute clip on awareness and Anthony DeMello. And I encourage you just to listen to it because I'm telling you, it will resonate with you. It's impossible not to when it is a truth. And his accent just adds even more to his teachings. And if you're yet to get into learning additional stuff through books, this is the best way to go. I really encourage it. And even before I go to bed now, I'll put on Audible, you can put a timer on. So I'll lay there or I'll meditate before I lay down and I'll stick on a book. And usually within 15 minutes, I've completely gone to sleep. And then when I come back to the book, I always go back about 5 or 10 minutes. And it's amazing how much actually does stick. And it's like, oh, I did remember that. I just don't remember falling asleep. We never do. And some of the books or some of the parts of the book when I'm listening to, the timer goes off and I'm still not ready for sleep because I still want to hear more. So the clip that I'm sharing with you today, I remember walking, smiling, going, this book's so good. It's so good. And me smiling about books that I'm listening to and the learnings and teachings that I get from it, that's unheard of for me a few years ago. But all of this really helps with my life, all of it. And the soul coaching, I share a lot of these stories from these books because it's so simple and so perfectly explained. And then I can add my own twist onto it as well. And again, it just flows out of you. So this is why I love truth so much. So the first book is Anthony DeMello.
Chapter 27, Sleepwalking.
The scriptures are always hinting at that, but you'll never get it, because you won't understand a word of what the scriptures are saying till you wake up. Sleeping people read the scriptures and crucify the Messiah on the basis of them. You gotta wake up to make sense out of the scriptures. But you know something? When you do wake up, they make sense. So does reality. but you'd never be able to put it into words. Now, wouldn't you do something? Wouldn't you swing into action? Of course you'd swing into action. But we've got to make sure that you're not swinging into action to get rid of your negative feelings. Am I making sense? Lots of people swing into action and only make things worse, you know, because they're not coming from love. They're coming from negative feelings. They're coming from guilt, from anger, from hate, from a sense of injustice, or whatever. We got to make sure of that first. We've got to make sure of your being before you swing into action. You got to make sure of who you are before we see what you do. And unfortunately, when sleeping people swing into action, they just substitute one cruelty with another, one injustice with another, and so it goes on. Meister Eckhart says so powerfully, it is not by your actions that you will be saved or awakened, call it any word you want, but by your being. It is not by what you do, but by what you are that you will be judged. Of what good is it to you to feed the hungry and give drink to the thirsty and visit the prisoners in jail? Remember that sentence? I could give my body to be burnt and all my goods to feed the poor, but if I have not love, that's important. Not your actions. Not your actions. Forget it. It's your being. Then you might get into action, or you might not get into action. You can't decide that till you know, till you understand, till you're awake. And unfortunately, all the emphasis is being put on changing the world and very little emphasis on waking you up. When you wake up, you will know what to do or what not to do. Some of the mystics are very strange, you know, like that man Jesus who says, I wasn't sent to those people. I just limit myself to what I'm supposed to do right now. Later, maybe. Some of them go into silence, mysteriously. Some of them sing songs. Some of them get into service. We're never sure. They're a law unto themselves. They know exactly what is to be done. Get into the heat of battle. Keep your heart at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, see what happens to us when we're asleep. It's like I said to you before, the world is good or the world is right because you feel good. Imagine that you're unwell and you're in a foul mood and they're taking you through some lovely countryside, beautiful landscape, but you're not in the mood for seeing anything. Another day you pass by the same place and you say, good heavens, where was I that I didn't notice all of this? Everything becomes beautiful when you change. You're looking at the trees and the mountains through windows that are wet with the rain and a storm, and everything looks blurred and shapeless. And you want to go right out there and change those trees and change those mountains. Wait a minute. Let's examine your window. When the storm ceases and the rain stops and you look out of the window, you say, well, how different everything looks. Because we see people and things not as they are, but as we are. And it's so important to understand that. That is why when two people look at something or look at someone, you get two different reactions. We see things and people not as they are, but as we are. Remember that sentence about everything turning to good for those who love God? When you awake, you don't try to make good things happen. They just happen. They just happen. Because you understand suddenly that everything that happens to you is good. Marvelous. So think of the people you're living with and whom you want to change. You find them moody, inconsiderate, unreliable, treacherous, or whatever. When you are different, they will be different. That's an infallible and miraculous cure. The day you are different, they will become different. You will see them differently. He seemed so terrifying. He's actually frightened. She seems so rude. I am actually frightened. Or whatever. We suddenly see things differently. All of a sudden, no one has the power to hurt you anymore. No one has the power to put pressure on you. It's a marvelous state. You're putting pressure on me. You know, it's something like this. It's like you leave a book on the table and I pick it up and I say, you're pressing this book on me. It's up to me to pick it up or not to pick it up. But people never understood that. They're so busy accusing everybody else, blaming everyone else, blaming life, blaming society, blaming their neighbor. You never change that way. You continue in your nightmare. You never wake up. So, if you would put this program into action 1,000 times, A, identify the negative feelings. B, understand that they are in you, not in the world, not in external reality. C, do not say that that is an essential part of I. These things come and go. D, understand that when you change, everything changes.
I love that. So everything becomes beautiful when you change. Everything changes when you change. And this is what I love so much about his teachings, and especially this book. It really takes the onus on you. Take control of everything in your life, your feelings especially. It's very easy to point and blame and find different faults on people and get triggered for certain things that they do. When we change the perspective, when we start taking responsibility, when we can find the teachings, when we can observe and notice our ego going off, it's a lot easier for us to look at life differently. And that word fear, like we can see people in fear, anything that's from an unconscious state, anyone that gets triggered, they're in fear. Or as he said, they're frightened. Or we flip it. When we get triggered, there's something about us that's frightened. So for me, it's just a great teaching, but every single chapter is like that. And he's got so many good stories. I'm so really passionate about words as well. And the way that he describes the same thing that I do when it comes to the Bible, words can never be the full truth. They're pointers. And that's such a powerful teaching, because the way that we look at things are completely different to the way it's accepted by someone else, the interpretations of the words and the descriptions they've given it. So Anthony DeMello, and the beautiful thing about him as well, he's a Jesuit. And a lot of people get triggered by that word. But if we actually look what the word Jesuit means, so what does a Jesuit believe? They are grounded in love for Christ and animated by the spiritual vision of their founder, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, to help others and seek God in all things. As members of a worldwide society within the Catholic Church, the Jesuits are committed to the service of faith and the promotion of justice. So even just that description, and then also listening to the way that he describes his words, How can that be negative? And it is all about Christ, the teachings of Christ, Christ from within. And it is about helping people connect to God. And it's through spirituality. So a must get, and all of the links for these books, again, I'll put the Audible links below. So the next one, this is a must too. This is a must for everyone. And this is something that has received so much good feedback every time I've recommended this, because people are reluctant to get this one. It's called Conversations with God, and it's by Neale Walsch. And he has a conversation with God. He's really seeking now for help. And he actually says, look, God, if you're real, I need a sign. And then all of a sudden he's talking, which seems like he's talking to himself. He's having a full-on conversation. And he writes 3 books from the back of it. This was written in the 90s too. And everything in this book is so truthful. And when it comes to God and the Bible, and a lot of resistance, as I've mentioned many times before, and people are so attached to the words in the Bible, they're reluctant to listen to this book or read this book, reluctant. And if you just listen to it or read it, you'll see it's just truth. It's the simplified version of truth from every part of our life, every part of society, everything that takes place in the world, ideas about the new world, the way that advanced civilizations do live together in harmony. It's magical. So I'll just put a link to this one next, and this explains the 3-part being. And my teachings are thoughts, words, and actions. And on here, it's thoughts, words, and deeds. And it's just the way it's always explained. The reason why I love listening to this book, and I emphasize listening to it, is the voices of God. It's a male and a female, and they're both magical voices. So on this clip, it is the female. And just listen how simple it is, all about creation. And after listening to this one, answer this question. How is that wrong? All that is a truth. And can you apply that to your life? Have you learned something by listening to it? That's what God is sharing truth, is listening to wisdom, is being present in the moments. All of it adds to our growth. Growth is flow. Flow is our soul. Soul is God. God is love. Like, it's all things. It's all connected. And if we can understand it so much more simple, and a lot of the comments that do come in has said, this makes so much more sense. One of the comments that was left on my videos the other day was, thank you so much for recommending this book. As Neale Walsch is speaking and asking the questions in the book, she says, I'm visualizing all of it reflected back to my life in that moment, like the present moment. And reading books, some people prefer it. It's just this, for me, just sticks because it's spoken in a conversation format. It's not like someone's just reading the words and your mind's not drifting off. And you could do 1 chapter a day. So on Audible, it's a $7.99 a month membership where you get 1 book for free. But this book has 3 as part of that. And in between, there's different conversations with the author and many spiritual teachers and stuff in between. I skip always to the books, and I've gone through this book so many times. It's perfect for anyone going through life as a self-development, a spiritual journey, a business development, health, getting out of depression, anxiety. Like, this book will help everyone. And you can tune in at any point. You can turn it at any page and it will still resonate with you. So highly recommended. And this would always be in my top recommended books, regardless of what subject it is. And it's just the fact that it's got conversations with God, which would put a lot of people off. I know that would put me off if the word God was in any book a few years ago. It's just when you listen to it, the God part goes out the window. It's just 2 people having a conversation. You're like, this is powerful. It's magic. So listen to the way that they explain thoughts, words, and deeds.
Life is a creation, not a discovery. You do not live each day to discover what it holds for you, but to create it. You are creating your reality every minute, probably without knowing it. Here's why that is so and how that works. I have created you in the image and likeness of God. God is the creator. You are three beings in one. You can call these three aspects of being anything you want. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, mind, body, and spirit, superconscious, conscious, and subconscious. Creation is a process that proceeds from these three parts of your body. Put another way, you create at three levels. The tools of creation are thought, word, and deed. All creation begins with thought, proceeds from the Father. All creation then moves to word. Ask, and you shall receive. Speak, and it shall be done unto you. All creation is fulfilled in deed, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. That which you think of, but thereafter never speak of, creates at one level. That which you think of and speak of creates at another level. That which you think, speak, and do becomes made manifest in your reality. To think, speak, and do something which you do not truly believe is impossible. Therefore, the process of creation must include belief or knowing. This is absolute faith. This is beyond hoping. This is knowing of a certainty. By your faith shall ye be healed. Therefore, the doing part of creation always includes knowing. It is a gut-level clarity, a total certainty, a complete acceptance as reality of something. This place of knowing is a place of intense and incredible gratitude. It is a thankfulness in advance. And that, perhaps, is the biggest key to creation, to be grateful before and for the creation. Such taking for granted is not only condoned, but encouraged. It is the sure sign of mastery. All masters know in advance that the deed has been done. Celebrate and enjoy all that you have created. To reject any part of it is to reject a part of yourself. Whatever it is that is now presenting itself as part of your creation, own it, claim it, bless it, be thankful for it. Seek not to condemn it. God damn it. For to condemn it is to condemn yourself. If there is some aspect of creation you find you do not enjoy, bless it and simply change it. Choose again. Call forth a new reality. Think a new thought. Say a new word. Do a new thing. Do this magnificently, and the rest of the world will follow you. Ask it to. Call for it to. Say, I am the life and the way. Follow me. This is how to manifest God's will on earth as it is in heaven.
If it is all as simple as that, if these steps are all we need, why does it not work that way for more of us?
It does work that way for all of you. Some of you are using the system consciously with full awareness, and some of you are using it unconsciously without even knowing what you are doing. Some of you are walking in wakefulness, and some of you are sleepwalking. Yet all of you are creating your reality. Creating, not discovering. Using the power I have given you and the process I've just described. So you've asked when your life will take off, and I've given you the answer. You get your life to take off by first becoming very clear in your thinking about it. Think about what you want to be, do, and have. Think about it often until you are very clear about this. Then when you are very clear, think about nothing else. Imagine no other possibilities. Throw all negative thoughts out of your mental constructions. Lose all pessimism. Release all doubts. Reject all fears. Discipline your mind to hold fast to the original creative thought. When your thoughts are clear and steadfast, begin to speak them as truths. Say them out loud. Use the great command that calls forth creative power. I am. Make I am statements to others. I am is the strongest creative statement in the universe. Whatever you think, whatever you say, after the words I am, sets into motion those experiences, calls them forth, brings them to you. There is no other way the universe knows how to work. There is no other route it knows to take. The universe responds to I am as would a genie in a bottle.
Again, just so magic. Be grateful before and for the creation. And the more we are grateful for everything in this creation, the more the creation is grateful for us too. And these teachings are really, really important for me personally as well, because there's so many times where I do get caught onto those negative thoughts and I do get frustrated, and it's let go of all that. And it's almost to go through your day and set intentions without any other focus apart from becoming aware of those thoughts. So every time you get negative, every time you have a little moan to yourself, catch it and change it. And knowing that everything you put out there will come true. So it's the thoughts, then the words, and then the deed. And it's indeed, it's inside your body. You feel it. And like she said it could be a belief or a knowing. However, I always say it is a knowing. And she used the word knowing twice after. You have to know. It's to know and have full faith that it will come true. And it is true if we are focused every time on our words and our thoughts. So give that book a go, because just in that short little space, that is continuous all the way through. Book one is just the simplified version of spirituality, the simplified version of connecting with God. And everything you'll be able to do from that book is applied to your life and everyone that is in your life too. And it's the knowing. It's knowing that God is real. That's for me is being the confirmation I've had more and more, especially with my meditation experiences. And then it's to catch your ego, because it's your ego, your mind, is the thing that gives us our limitations. And it's conditioned. We've been born into a world where we have been conditioned from all sorts of things. So we're breaking away from that, and that is part of the awakening. But can you see how both books are very similar in terms of their teachings, just by them two chapters? And I enjoy it so much. So that's Conversations with God. Again, I'll leave the link below. And then this is the next one. It's called Perfect, Brilliant Stillness. This it's mind-blowing. And I really encourage people, if you haven't listened to any of them or gone through any of them, go for these two first, because it does set you up nicely for this one. If you are on a spiritual journey and you really like this stuff, this is the next one, because it challenges you massively. So the narrator on this is Terrance Stance. And if you look at the films that he's been in over the years, there's some powerful ones. And I always look out for the signs. And recently, whenever I go onto Netflix or wherever I see an advert for a film now, I always take that as a sign to say, right, I got to watch that. Whereas before, I wouldn't be interested in movies. And I watched one recently called Wanted, which is an older film, Angelina Jolie. And he was in the film, and straight away as he talked, I'm like, that's him. And he's narrating this book, and it is storytelling, but it's not his book. It's a guy called David Carse, and he talks about when he goes out to India and he's with a number of teachers, but he shares simple ways of looking at life, and also the way that we overcomplicate everything, especially when it comes to spiritual teachers and gurus and enlightened ones. He just makes it all so simple. And I use this as a reference when I look at the truth movement, when I look at the mainstreamers, when I look at these teachers that are talking about third eye activation, ascension, 5D, and they're all just saying the same buzzwords. For me, if people actually started learning properly and listening to all this, you'll see that a truth can only be from the person. Speak your truth. We can take all this information, and on this one that I'm going to share with you now, it says, like, if you're taking teaching to try to fit it into all the things that you learned so far, it's not going to work. It's going to challenge you. It's not, you learn all this stuff, but it still has to be applied to your life. And that's what being able to share and describe your own experience. And I especially like the way that he explains when when certain things are presented to you and you've never heard it before, you've never seen it before, it doesn't stick. Your mind, your nervous system, because it has no reason to use it and it has no examples or references to anything similar to it before, it just lets it go. And our eyes, as he also mentions in this, sees so much more. And it's only when things are made aware. And a great example is when you get a new car, or ladies, when you buy a new handbag or a new top, and all of a sudden you see that everywhere. Whereas before you didn't notice it at all. You bring awareness to it. And the way that he explains just flat shapes in 2D, and then trying to explain someone in that flat space, this 3D character, you haven't got the words to go with it for them to understand. And this is sometimes where my frustration comes in when it comes to the spiritual teachings and the soul coaching and God. And you can tell that people haven't had that experience the way that it's being described, but there's so many other ways in their life that they have had experience with God. It's just they haven't linked the two. And this is why I encourage everyone to come onto these meditation experiences, because God speaks through me. And when you're in those experiences, your ego is completely out the way, because you know there's no other agenda in it apart from your body is feeling bliss. Your mind is quiet, and your mind is creating. And your soul, that energy inside you, your truth, is vibrating. So again, I'll leave a link for meditation. Try my recent one. There's some good ones here. And it then makes a lot more sense when you start hearing things like this. So this one, you'll see the difference between the first two that I shared and this one. And the way that he teaches this is the last part that he says as well. He says, what's changed? So I'll let this play now. So this one is Perfect Brilliant Stillness, David Carse, read by Terrance.
Chapter 31. Explode your brain. You take your imagining for facts and my facts for imagination. Nisargadatta Maharaj. Oh, God help me. What a difference there is between hearing and believing these words, and being led in this way to realize how true they are. St. Teresa of Avila. Ultimately, anyone who has ever attempted to write about this or talk about it with the idea or intent of communicating some of it is engaged in a futile, pointless task. There is a basic problem here. And now I don't mean that what is outside human knowledge or experience or categories is inexpressible, which is also true. There is another basic problem on the other end, the receiving end. Human beings learn by association. The way the human mind is constructed, the way it is wired, is that it always has to have something to relate to. If something new is encountered, the mind will look in its databanks for something similar, however approximately, in order to make a comparison. If it finds something it has encountered before, which is somewhat or in some way similar, it will say, okay, this new thing is like this old thing, but different in the following ways. The new thing can then be seen, assimilated, categorized, learned. Education professionals call this schematic development. But if there can be found nothing in the memory banks that in any way corresponds to any aspect of this new thing, then to the mind it will have no meaning, and the new thing will not be learned or assimilated. The mind does not know what to do with it. In fact, scientists who study these things tell us that our eyes, for example, physically see many times more things each day, each moment, than our brains think we see. The nervous system filters out most of what is physically seen because it is not familiar, and therefore judged to be not important. This is not something we can blame ourselves for and resolve to correct and take a seminar to learn to do differently. It's simply the way the organism functions. This filtering mechanism occurs on the level of the autonomic nervous system. before what you think of as your conscious self, or your thoughts, or your will, or your intention even have a crack at it. We have all experienced the phenomenon of learning something new and subsequently seeing it everywhere, whereas before it had never been noticed. It had always been there, everywhere. And surely our physical eyes had seen it, but until the brain recognizes it as something that relates to something it knows, it is not truly seen. Given this mechanism, it is a wonder that anything is ever learned at all. As it is, the learning happens only incrementally, by way of what is familiar, what is already known. And we tend to learn more in the direction in which we were started. Wei Wu-wei puts this well at the beginning of his Ask the Awakened. Perhaps the most serious handicap is that we start on the wrong foot. In the end, this is likely to be fatal, and I fear generally is. We have a basic conditioning, probably in some form of Christian religion, in which very little remains today, but its ethical content, or in one of the modern psychologies, that of Freud, Adler, or Jung, or in some scientific discipline, all of which are fundamentally and impeccably dualist. Then the urge manifests, and we start reading. Every time we happen on a statement or a sentiment that fits in with our conditioned notions, we adopt it, perhaps with enthusiasm, at the same time ignoring, as though they did not exist, the statements and sentiments which either we did not like or did not understand. And every time we reread the Masters or the Sutras, we seize upon further chosen morsels as our own jigsaw puzzle builds up within us until we have a personal patchwork that corresponds with nothing on earth and could not matter in the least. Not in 1,000 million kalpas could such a process produce the essential understanding that the urge is obliging us to seek. We are required to do exactly the opposite of all that. The opposite of all that, which is required for understanding of what is what is known in Zen as beginner mind, a state of open awareness, a state of what Stephen Levine calls don't know. Spiritual teachers often make use of the image of the innocence of a young child in trying to express the empty openness necessary if one is to be able to truly hear the truth. But who can approach the teaching like this? One hears the sage's words, and immediately the mind associates the words with what it knows as their familiar definitions and thinks it knows what has been said. This is why the masters use so many tricks, cones, meaningless phrases, stories that lead nowhere, statements that contradict themselves. Carlos Castaneda called the whole process of teaching by these techniques an attempt by the teacher to stop the world of the student. Gangaji calls on seekers to simply stop. But who can stop in this way? Ooh, that's good, thinks the seeker. That really resonates. We should all just stop. The idea or the expression that one should stop is simply added to the personal patchwork, and the crazy jigsaw puzzle that corresponds to nothing keeps being built up. The seeker calls it a lifetime of hard-earned knowledge or even wisdom, but the masters and sages unequivocally call it ignorance. I've seen this in action. When I first went to see Ramesh, he was continually telling the people who came to him that the way to the understanding lies in realizing that there is nothing you can do. You are not the doer of anything. Events only happen through you. This was the basis of his teaching, and he repeated it ad nauseum. I would see people take notes, writing this down. Then the hand would go up. So, given this, and I understand it perfectly, how do I go about my life? When I leave here, what should I do? Ramesh showed infinite patience. I wanted to shake them. Haven't you heard anything the man has said? You have just been given the secret of life, the universe, and everything. Stop! Wake up! Let these words explode your brain. The trouble with students these days is that they seize on words and form their understanding on that basis. In a big notebook they copy down the sayings of some worthless old fellow, wrapping it up in 3 layers, 5 layers of carrying cloth, not letting anyone else see it, calling it the dark meaning, and guarding it as something precious. What a mistake! Blind fools! What sort of juice do they expect to get out of old dry bones? These words were spoken by Chan Master Lin Chi in the 7th century. What has changed?
Stop. Wake up. He puts on loads of voices in this book. So you can see the difference between the first two and that one. However, the way that he delivers this information, it's from the words of this guy called David Carse, who I think was a carpenter or some sort of construction worker, wasn't really spiritual at all, but just had all these profound insights and just paying attention to what he witnessed whilst he was out there. And can you see how all of the 3 books that I've just played, these little teachings, there's so much we can all take away just from them. And this is every part of the book, every part of all 3 of those books. So that's my top 3 books, personal books, which I'd recommend to everyone. And the next one that I'll do in book recommendations would be my top 5 spiritual ones, which will still have these 2 in there, awareness and conversations with God. Well, I say spiritual books for people just getting into the journey, more simplified ones. And then I'll add another 3 onto there as well. And I'll continue to do different book reviews, and on some of the meditations I do share some of these clips within the meditations with the music on there as well, because once you're in that blissful state, it just downloads even more so. It resonates so much. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed this. Again, as always, people, please do leave your comments. And I do feel that these sort of teachings are going to help all of us move forward, especially with what is taking place in the external world. The most important thing is for us to do the work internally before we go out. And we're going to have so much work to do, because a lot more people are going to be snapping out of this sleepy state and going to come from a fearful place, a confused place. So when we do the work, we can start approaching life from a lot calmer place, and there'll be so much more awareness based from these teachings, which again, it's timeless. We can switch on at any time and we can take something away from them. So I'm Harry, the Soul Coach. Thank you as always, and I'll see you all very, very soon.